Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Brett McCullum, and I'm here today with Matt Miller. And today we're going to be talking about wholesale agent development. Before we do, guys, at Investor Fuel, we help real estate investors, service providers, and real estate entrepreneurs to 5X their businesses and allow them to build the business they've always wanted and live the life they've always dreamed of. Without further ado, Matt, how are you, man?
I'm doing great.
Dude, thanks for being on the show. It's really good catching up with you pre-show, getting to know you a little bit, getting some background in history. It's going to be a good show, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited as well.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into it, age-old question, classic. Matt, who are you? Tell us some background. How'd you get? Give us the history. Who are you?
Yeah, definitely. So, Matt Miller. I live in Long Beach, California. My favorite city in Southern California, but I am biased. I'm married. I've got 2 kids, a 2 and a 4-year-old, and been running my own business with some partners since July of 2020 in the
Very
wholesale
cool.
space.
Very
And
cool.
prior to real estate, I was been in the game for a while, but I was in the military. So got in the
What
military, got out, went to school, and then
what
got
branch?
I was a medic in the Army
In the
and
Army.
stationed at Fort Campbell in Kentucky, the
Oh, cool.
101st Airborne, and spent some time overseas. Got to learn a lot about leadership, um,
Yeah.
and a lot
Yeah.
about
What was that? I'm sorry to cut you off. What was that like? You're overseas, you're an Army man, you've got a huge responsibility, obviously. Um, what was that like?
I think the experience in the military is I needed it as a kid. I went in when I was 17. And when I was deployed, I was from 21 to 22. I was deployed overseas in a combat zone. And
Mm,
the level of expectation and what you can get from people with even not a lot of years of service, I think the Army sort of places the responsibility on you. One, there's excellent leadership development there. And
okay.
2, they take new people and expect them to perform at a high level, and they end up getting what they expect, which
Yeah.
is honestly a lot of kids running around, fighting the war and doing all the things that the country needs done. So a lot of really good lessons that I probably didn't appreciate until later, but it
Sure.
served me pretty well, especially around just the basics, work ethic, showing up on time in the right
Right.
uniform, and you get modeled a lot of real true leadership behavior because you're in a crisis. So it's not just window dressing on how you actually lead and motivate people and take care of people. You get it. I had some very, very good local leaders for our brigade and battalion that really modeled what that looks like on a higher level. And
Yeah.
that I was lucky to have that at a young age.
Let me ask you this question, because when you said this, it kind of hit my brain. You mentioned regarding responsibility. Um, as kids, they say, "Here's responsibility," and it's just dropped in your lap. Um, I've had some high level leaders around me have a similar thought pattern.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
And it's always been interesting to me to see, like, people tend to rise up to what is given to them. You know, the right people anyway tend to rise up into that. And you met, like, was that kind of your experience as well from what you saw?
Yes, and the way that it's done in the military, you almost do more for other people than you'd ever do for yourself. So
Yeah.
you don't want to make a mistake because it's going to affect your team member. And they start that out very early in the training. I make a mistake, I show up late. I don't even get punished. It's the entire group. So you realize how much your behavior is tied to the outcomes of
Yeah.
the people around you, and it gives you a level of responsibility to like be there for, you know, your brothers and sisters in arms and how important that is. And I think that carries over pretty well into life generally. And people tend to look up to folks that they trust and that they know are going to show up and
Hmm.
support them.
Man,
But yeah,
that's super cool.
people constantly rise to the level of expectations you set for them.
And
So
that's a beautiful thing. It's something that I need to continue to remind myself of, right? Especially even as parents, you know, with our children. That's a huge thing. Um, yeah. Man, I have to say before we even get too much further into this, thank you for your service. We certainly appreciate you, man.
oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk real estate a little bit. You said 2012, give or take. Was that when you kind of got your first introduction into that?
Yeah, I was lucky enough, a really close childhood friend of mine, I went into the service. He was an athlete. He ended up going into the NFL and finding his way to a small wholesale shop in Dallas, called New Western Acquisitions, which I think most people who are in this space know. They've built just an absolutely incredible company and organization that's nationwide and developed a lot of leaders, in the process. I moved out to Houston, Texas to work with them at their like newer Houston branch. And then eventually 2013 left to go to California with a very small group to launch their West Coast operations.
Very cool. And you did that for approximately, was it 7 years? Did I do the math right?
Yeah, it was 7 years in California. And then in July of 2020, first child on the way, looking way further down the road on career and what I really wanted. It was time to spread my wings and start my own company. So left
Sure.
and formed Fairtrade in July of 2020 and currently 8 offices in California and, you know, a couple thousand transactions in the books and continuing to kind of grow and develop our team members.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, and what a like journey, right? It's and I think that speaks a lot to your character, that it wasn't hey, let me work somewhere for 5 seconds and move on. I mean, 7 years is a long time, and especially in the REI space, in the wholesale space, like, you know, you see these when you're a acquisitions manager, whatever your role was, um, you know, you see the whole pie, and I'm only getting a slice, you know, and like, man, I know how to do, but you sticking with it for that period of time. Um, I mean, before you, it taught you, I have to imagine it taught you so many lessons of how to operate a wholesale business before you ever started one. Like, did that translate for you some way?
It did. And I'd done some investing prior to getting into real estate. I'd bought my own home and then turned it into a rental.
Okay.
I had done some renovation projects locally in Sacramento, where I'm from. So I had some experience getting in, but understanding the complexity of managing a business, um, both P&L management that I had the responsibility for, which was excellent, but also realizing the people component that was so huge.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency, it's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
Yeah.
And not really just the back office support, but how to support the private contractors, agents, and their career development and their ups and downs coming into the industry. That was some of the best learning lessons. And in the rear view, as I launched my own company, also realizing how much work goes into managing a large organization and how impressive the older a company gets and the bigger the footprint, the complexity
Sure.
just starts to snowball. So a lot of very good lessons during my time there, and that I've
Yeah.
been able to, translate over and evolve on.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too. Like the business side of it, I have a mentor that always says business is easy, people are difficult. And as you're growing a business out, and you've got more people coming in and different personalities and different, I mean, maybe this is the wrong way to say it, but we all bring baggage into something that, good or bad. And that comes in with it, and hey, guess what? Hey, Matt, you're the owner of this company and you get to inherit those problems now as a result of owning what's that been like for you?
I'd say that it's been really excellent launching and running the business as I'm a new parent,
Yeah.
because there's so many parallels. And I think that if you do a good job on the people side, because they're bringing, a lot of things into the business,
Right.
expectations. Oftentimes, like I really judge like success and leadership on, it's pretty apparent, like how well are the people around you doing?
Mm.
And a lot of times when you're running a wholesale business, or in the investment space, it means they're doing so well that eventually they leave to go do
Yeah.
something else.
True. A lot
Uh,
of turn. That's why I mentioned that 7 years is a
yeah.
long time. Yeah.
And, I had folks that came up with me and left to go to master's programs at MIT for real estate development. I had a guy leave to go to Harvard Law, but is now back working as my general counsel at the new organization.
Oh,
So you
wow.
see these evolutions of the people that come in the door. They buy their first rental, they buy their primary residence, they get financially secure for the first time, they get a confidence
Yeah.
because they came on and learned enough about leadership and life and business to be able to, really evolve as people. And then eventually they're going to want to stretch their wings and go,
But
whether it's
I would imagine it's
do
your
something else.
heart probably is for that to happen too, isn't it? Like
It is
that's,
hard, but
yeah.
I think that it's sort of a notch in your belt as a leader to know that that's happened, that they gave the confidence, just like your kids when they head out the door. When I left at 17, I'm sure it wasn't fun for my parents, but it also
Yeah.
meant that I had enough confidence at that age to say, I'm out of here and I'm going to be fine.
Yeah. And,
So
yeah. And good on them for that. And good, I mean, yeah, you're growing leaders. And when they become leaders, like, you know, that's the found the chest on, like I did it. But it's
yeah,
also, like, oh, now I got to hire again. It's a
and
revolving door.
I think you give them also, like, it's always important to have career path, right?
Right.
Wherever you're at. So there's always going to be a path toward management and leadership. But some of the biggest and best individual producers, if they get forced in that path, I think they don't tend to thrive there.
That's right.
They want to build, they want to do more, they want to see what's next. And I'd love it if that climb is with me and I can find a place for them in the organization. But I'm also realistic that a lot of those folks are going to go and find out what that next thing they're going to conquer and learn is going to be. And we'll run into each other again. The
Yeah.
industry's
Have you ever heard of a book called The Energy Bus?
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
So it's a pretty easy read, not very overly complicated, but the premise of it is in organizations where you got Matt, you got Brett, and let's say your acquisition, I'm disposition, we're both doing great, and now I'm gonna go up. I want to do this next thing, like we were talking, just like you're talking about.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
Sometimes your seat on the bus in the organization is best here, but not there. And your job as a leader is to figure out where those seats are, because you get the right person on the wrong seat, the energy that gets sucked out of the room, that gets sucked out of the organization, that gets sucked out of, comes from it. And he almost comedically calls them energy vampires. And largely it's because they're sucking it out, right? And largely it's because they're not so much they're bad people as much as it is they're in the wrong seat. Get them in the right seat on the bus. And I think that's the mission of every leader of an organization, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And you see that from taking a person that might be in dispositions or sales, and they're good at it, but they want to figure out what's next and they want to grow, and they maybe step into an acquisition role. And sometimes that's the wrong seat for them, or sometimes it's the right seat, but it's not comfortable yet. So you got to keep them in that seat until they develop the skills and get to the next level, because they're
Right.
so good at their primary job, and they're learning a completely new set of skills of underwriting and negotiating on contracts and stuff that goes into the acquisition side of the house.
Yeah.
Same thing
This
with
is a
leadership.
good, this is a good segue. Talking about development, and that's what you're doing. And that's something that we kind of touched on the top of the show with wholesale agent development. Tell me a little bit about what wholesale agent development is and kind of, what you guys are doing with it.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I think our whole philosophy as an organization is centered around, like, who's the core customer? And I
Hmm.
would argue for a lot of other companies, the core customer ends up being the real estate investor who's flipping, or the seller, right? That's who they're
Right.
serving. We've known since inception that the real estate agent is the core customer of Fairtrade Real Estate. That's who we're going to put the most energy into. Granted, those other customer buckets are incredibly important for the business, but knowing who our core customer is has helped us keep very focused on agent development.
Hmm.
And with us, everything starts out with really strong sales fundamentals. So almost every agent, without exception, unless you're coming in with a long track record, is going to come into a disposition sales role and learn how to do investor relations and sell the company's inventory to those fix and flip investors, buy and hold investors, developers that
Right.
work in the California markets that we're in. And we put energy into training around the skills needed for that role. And then once you've proven your ability to do that, we start putting training into the acquisition side of the house. And that's the sort of standard career development with us. You start in sales, move to acquisitions. And then if you have competency in those two roles and show capacity for leadership, you have the right character, move you into a leadership role, managing a team.
Okay. Yeah, that's incredible. Let's spend some time for a moment talking about, like, let's say, Brett just joins and I'm in the sales role on the disposition side. Are you hiring, are they licensed agents from the jump? Are you getting them licensed? What's that evolution like?
Sure. So Fairtrade is a wholesale brokerage. Everyone, including the founders, are licensed brokers or agents. All the people that join need to already be licensed in California.
Yeah.
Uh,
Why did you guys elect to go that direction with it?
Good question. I think the main piece is having a barrier to entry and sort of another outside governing body that
Mm.
makes sure that the conduct of the person,
Mm.
um, above board. They've had to
Yeah.
at least have the discipline to take the basic real estate sales classes, pass the test, pass the background test, and they're obviously interested in the space. The
Yeah.
license also gives them flexibility with what they're going to do in their real estate career generally, whether they're, you know, able to grab commissions from when they're on the acquisition side of the house to benefit the brokerage, or if they're doing their own projects. The folks that join Fairtrade Real Estate and that get into the investment space and wholesale, they're interested in real estate and investing. They want to invest. They want to own doors. They want to
Right.
flip properties. They want to do all those things. And I think being an agent um, adds an additional tool that's very, very helpful for
Absolutely.
anyone
I
entering.
yeah, I agree completely. In the wholesale space, I mean, it's a mixed bag, right? You've got some people like, I'll never get my license because I don't need it. Why would I do that? You've got the people that are like, well, I've got my license because it allows me more flexibility to do this. But I think what I really resonated with what you said was barrier to entry, right? I mean, there was a time and it's still out there now, like you see some bad actors out there in the wholesale space, right? No barrier to entry. They watched a 5-second YouTube short on, what a wholesale deal is, and then they think they're the expert now, and then they go out making, you know, it's just not good. Um, you're attracting higher level talent, ideally, I would imagine, by just that one thing.
I agree. Yeah, it takes our recruiting funnel because we develop wholesale agents and narrows the potential candidate pool down. And I'd say that generally the folks that are coming to work with us, they share a few traits, right? They have that entrepreneurial spirit that most agents have. They're interested in the investment space much more than the traditional real estate listing representing buyers, working on open houses on the weekends, more standard traditional transactions. Um, and they tend to be younger in their careers.
Hmm.
They've been at another brokerage for a little while, and or they're early entries into the space. I landed at a wholesale brokerage, my first real estate job, and hadn't, and that's I've been in the space since then.
Yeah,
And I don't think I would do well in traditional real estate. I have a lot of friends and colleagues that work the
sure.
traditional space. It's a very different set of skill sets.
Have you?
And
Okay.
work.
So it's because it's agent focused, right? As that's your team. Um, I know a lot of the agents I know, right, have a predisposition to struggle with wholesale because I don't give them the right fiduciary responsibility. All the classic, things that your agents will tell you. Um, how much, or if at all, do you run into that with when you're working with new agents in your organization?
I'd say new agents coming into the company, they understand it really well up front, and there's not a lot. They want to get into this space. And I personally feel that the licensed wholesale space is about the best place to be on real estate right
Yeah,
now. I rehab properties myself. I know what it's like to be a flipper. I'm a landlord. Um, it's very glamorous on the surface, but the trade and the art of being able to put a deal together where there's enough spread for everyone involved, seller gets what they want for the property, there's a profit margin for the wholesaler, and the end investor makes a margin on their renovation project or gets their next rental property. To me, it's a beautiful thing and a beautiful
yeah,
place to be. I'd say agents definitely, like we'll say the realtor community has some bias unless they've worked successfully with operators before.
I agree 1,000,000%.
And one thing that sets us apart is we don't assign contracts. We concurrent close everything, meaning we have
Yeah,
credit facilities, we fund with our own cash. We've bought over $1 billion worth of real estate in California. Like our companies have taken title to that. And I think understanding the licensing, understanding the people with the capital and cash and experience to actually close the purchase, it really helps when the agents are educated or they've had a successful closing, it sort of changes the dynamic.
absolutely.
And I think the industry generally has to evolve because expectations are raising, things are getting more complex, and the seller situations that you have to solve in order to have a profitable deal, it feels like, at least in the market right now in California, they're more complicated problems,
Sure.
both with the property and with the maybe how title's held. So
Yeah.
all those things you really need a professional for.
Wow. No, I couldn't agree more. I love that philosophy. I just, I know a lot of the traditional, like, traditional agents, if you will, like, come work with us for a minute, and then tell me what you think, right? Like, I love that approach. Um,
One of the arguments I make to traditional agents too, Brett, is how much earnest money do you have out right now? And the answer is always zero. It said, well, I have $860,000 in cash out right now in earnest money. Do you have credit facilities you have to maintain in order to purchase property? How much real estate did you purchase? How many escrow fees did you pay? How many title
that
policies?
credibility, yeah, that credibility stack just bam, drop it on them.
I just, and it's not to dismiss the hard work that goes into being a listing agent or a buyer's agent.
Right.
It's very challenging. It's to recognize that there's a very big risk from a professional investor and wholesaler and additional costs that get taken on that oftentimes are in the background or not thought about. And I think
Right.
that normally when you have that conversation with the other like real estate professionals, it really starts to connect the dots on the value that you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, that's incredible. Man, no, I know we could keep going on about that too. I wanted to ask you, all right, it's 2025, okay? Um, you know, obviously, all the the normal objections of real estate today, rates, taxes, insurance, all the things like that, prices, on homes haven't gone down, but everything else has gone up, what's working for, fair trade today is from a either it be like what is your target audience still looking like? How are they coming to you? And then moreover, I see the challenge on the wholesale side on my bit is our investor buyers, right? That are buying a little more conservatively than they have and things like that. What are you guys running into right now?
So I'll tell you from each bucket's perspective, starting with the agent's perspective. It's harder to do deals right now. There's
Mhm.
less transactions, let's say in Q1 of this year than there was in Q1 of 2024.
Right.
Um, so coming in to the business or being seasoned in the business and seeing transactional velocity slow down for a number of reasons, that's always a challenge. So you have to lead through that and just have all the agents focus on the fundamentals. I think
Right.
fundamentals to me are tied around strong relationship development, understanding what that fix and flip investor is really looking for, understanding the returns, understanding what they might be doing with their strategy on the resale for the property, whether now they're doing ADUs or they're doing a small value add, and really understanding the scope of work that they're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
From the seller side, I think the competition for deals is as high as I've seen it in recent memory. And that comes from a lot of different spaces. If
Yeah.
you own a home, you have people like Fairtrade that you could sell to directly. You have every local listing brokerage wanting to list the house,
Yep.
competing with compressed commissions for the listing of the property. Um, you've got companies like Open Door coming in and providing an alternative solution for certain housing types. So there's a lot of competition for the home seller to get their
Yeah.
attention and to win their business. Um, and then from the investor's perspective, uh, they need to execute the right strategy that's current with what's going to make sure the house sells in today's market, right?
Right.
And that shifts the demand from these owner occupant buyers who have high interest rates. They're going to want a very nice product. They're going to want the right materials, the right finish outs. It's probably going to have to be staged correctly. So, and that also means that the fix and flip investor can't really be a hobbyist right now.
Right.
They need to be a professional, meaning like they probably either consult with or have a designer. They've got consistency in bulk material pricing. They have a strategy before they go in of both where they're buying and the type of rehab they're going to be doing. And if they're doing it at scale, it's probably pretty similar for all their projects, but they know they have a good idea and they're predicting what that owner occupant's going to want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And maybe that's finishing out a portion of the house to be a detached office. There's all these different things that are very relevant today that they need to really be thoughtful of. And then also getting the right cost of money, the right crews and the right inventory sources. And we're able to come in as an inventory source, like you probably do in your
Right.
wholesale business. You're another inventory source for that professional investor, whether they're fixing and flipping or holding on to them as rentals.
Right. Yeah, the thing that we're seeing on our end, I'm curious to hear your perspective on it is, and you touched on it too, right? On your disposition agent side, like on that side of it, um, cultivating the relationships with the people that are actually buying before there's a product to push in front of them.
Yeah, I think that comes down to our process is pretty straightforward. We require an investor to become Fairtrade verified with our sales team prior to receiving the inventory that we have available. And there's a
Yeah.
number of reasons for that, that we don't just have like an open marketplace for anyone to go on to. It really sets the right expectations. Part of that onboarding should be a conversation between the agent and investor about what the investor is looking for very specifically: counties, price points, how they're financing the property, who's involved in the purchase, and then also walking them through like, this is how it works with Fairtrade. We sell out the door prices to the investors, which we've got
Hmm.
a lot of positive
Sure.
feedback from, but they also need to know we do a concurrent close. They need to know how the option and sales contract work. They need to know how to communicate with their agent. So it's really about like aligning and communicating well early so that when the deal comes up,
It's
if
just,
it's a good deal, they can move on it, underwrite it quickly, and make the decision quickly
yeah,
because it is hyper competitive, just like the markets I'm sure you're in.
yeah,
And I don't want the education of the investor or our agents to be the reason the deal doesn't come through for that particular group.
yeah.
I'd rather everyone know the rules of the game and be able to operate in a space where they can make quick decisions and thoughtful decisions so they can still be profitable, but also still compete.
Yeah. See, I think the shift in wholesale in the last, let's call it 18 months, okay, fairly recent history, has gone from you could just literally, it was just order taking in the wholesale business. And now it's you have to have a really, really solid disposition process. And I think a lot of the people that got into wholesaling when the times were really good, like that, just like I said, the order takers, they didn't cultivate the discipline of how to sell later. And what you're doing, from my perspective on the outside looking in here, is really, really you like. It's almost. It sounds to you, it's counterintuitive. Like, yeah, that's what you do. But I can tell you from talking with a lot of wholesalers across the country, that is a people aren't doing that. And what they ought to be doing is really like rewind, guys. Listen to that. Like Matt, you laid out a very beautiful, like clear A to Z. This is how we do it. If you guys can cherry pick that one thing from this episode, if you're wholesaling, I promise you, your wholesale business will like it'll explode a heck of a lot faster than what you're doing right now because what you're doing is spending time creating clear expectations with your buyers, with your processes, so that when the right deals come out, if there's, and there, I mean, there's a reason right now. There's like a almost a 40% fallout rate in contracts right now in wholesale across the country. That should never happen. I get it. Sometimes title is weird. Sometimes we can't solve certain problems. Sometimes but 40% of that is not those, right? It's usually you're not good at your disposition process and you're hurting sellers in the meantime, right?
And Brett, one thing that I've seen and we do pretty frequently is there's groups that are really good at marketing and good at the acquisition piece that end up sort of like offloading the disposition stuff onto Fairtrade.
Yeah,
They call us, they call our senior agents and say, hey, I just got this deal. It's in
good.
LA.
And if they recognize that they should do
Hire
that.
for it. Yeah, why don't you guys dispo it for me? And I think I've seen a lot of other smaller groups like really scale with that as an
Yep.
option because they tend to actually flip the ones they really like. The rest they dispo through us. You know, they assign it directly to us. We've got, we're funding, we're closing these things. So there's a lot of transparency with that and it allows them to not maybe have to manage such a big disposition team. But if you are doing dispo in house as a wholesaler or investor, the time that goes into that relationship cultivation and the onboarding process for a new
Hmm.
investor is really critical.
Yeah.
And
I,
you're going to get it back by actually being able to put deals together. In the
right.
future, if you have a giant list or you're just putting it on um, Investor Lift, some of these platforms that
Right.
you get a text, you get an email, it feels like I sent it out to 1,000 people. I don't know if that sells stuff in today's market. There's a lot of deal flow coming in from a lot of different sources.
Right.
Attention's really spread thin. And, the fundamentals really come back anytime there's market disruption.
Yeah. I think that say that one more time. Like, the fundamentals really come in when there's disruption. I think that's a huge factor. Um, and for our audience and for people that I talk to routinely, like we tell them often, like, hey, Matt, 50% if I don't know how your JVs look like, but let's say it's 50% is of something is better than 100% of nothing. And most people, most wholesalers, I'll say it like this, are good at one or the other. And they usually don't have a team. They're usually solopreneurs trying to figure something out, or they have like one VA, or you know what I mean? Like they're small. That's 99% of organizations. And they don't have a clear process map for that. So it would be wise of you until you create that to find a fair trade or somebody that is a specialist in that space, develop that relationship. If you're strong in acquisition, let's say, and if you happen to be like you guys and strong in disposition, I would make the other argument. And maybe you stink at acquisition. Find the people that can, do acquisition and split, go 50-50 if that's what it means. But I think that's really special. Like, I just wanted to highlight that from you guys. You have a very clear process, especially in today's market when it's, like you said, it's harder than maybe it ever has been. Fundamentals in disruption, like that's huge, man.
Yeah. And uh, just thinking through the JV model or the partnership model, like I don't think people in the wholesale space need to um I think with collaboration, there's a lot more deals that get closed
Yep.
and the drop rate falls generally and it's a better outcome for everybody, including the seller, right?
Check your
Everybody,
pride out the door.
yeah,
Know what you're good at. Do that. And then find the person that can help you collaborate where you're weakest at. And then over time, I mean, Matt, you weren't great at everything when you started off in 2012, were you?
I was not. Sales was probably the hardest learning curve I ever had. I'm much
Yeah.
more analytical, much more geared toward like the acquisition
And
seat.
you traded whatever that percentage was on your whatever you made for the education of that 7 years you were in that organization. And now you get to run. Like, I think that's a lost thing is we want to just be the guy or the girl or like now. And sometimes you got to, hey, I'll trade 50% of this deal to make sure that I can keep going.
Yes. And I like that your thoughts on the keep going because my big concern is that as the industry transitions, you have really talented folks that can have a big impact on their own lives
Yeah.
and they may throw the towel in too early. And you really gotta push through the hard times. And part of that is doing things you maybe haven't done before, including like consider JV, consider potentially a market expansion, considering different marketing tactics on your acquisition side, but definitely reconsidering uh, how you're doing dispo and if
Yeah.
it's working, especially if you've got people that have large splits or are
Yeah.
a U2 and they're not bringing things to the table that leads to closings or the software you're using isn't actually selling any houses, you really got to look at, line itemize your expenses and figure out where you're weak
Yeah.
and figure out how you can use leverage to get better in those areas.
I agree. Yeah. Well, man, Matt, we could probably talk for hours and hours and hours about this, like as you guys can tell. But we're going to need to try to wrap up here a little bit. Before we do, though, I like to ask people, if there's like I mean, you've chock full of great advice throughout this show. Okay, but if you could leave somebody with something that you're like, this is kind of something that's always stayed with me. It doesn't necessarily have to be wholesaling. It could be something from your army days. It could be something from your adolescence. It could be whatever it is. But what's something that maybe stayed with you that you carry into everyday life?
Yeah, I touched on it before, but I think I'll do one on the personal side. called leadership side and one that's on the real estate side. So on
Yeah.
the leadership side, you need to really judge your success by how the people around you are doing.
Mm.
It's a very simple way to see if you are an effective leader of a business, of your family, of anything. The people
Yeah.
around you are doing well, you're succeeding at your role as a leader in that capacity.
Yeah.
On the real estate side, I would say that just continue to grind through the challenges. We were chatting before the show, Brett, about if you're 10 years in the investment business or the wholesale business, you're a grizzled veteran.
Yeah.
And that's because so many people wash out of real estate broadly in the first 1 to 5 years and go do something else. If you really want it and you really want a different life and you really want something different for your family and your future, you have to push through all the hard times and connect yourself with the right groups of people or organizations where you're going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
So just, your environment is going to be crucial, but also your own grit.
Yeah. Don't quit. Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I love that. Well, guys, it's been a phenomenal show. Matt, if people want to reach out to you, get to know you a little bit better, what's maybe some way they might be able to connect with you?
Yeah, I'd say the best way is just reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, Matt Miller, Fairtrade Real Estate. My phone number's listed on there, but I respond quickly. That's the only social platform I have, but I'd love to connect
Perfect.
with everybody and, um, you know,
Yeah,
let's
guys, you heard
close
it.
the.
You heard it. Find him, look him up, connect, do it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts on that one. If you're in the California market or just in general, like Matt's somebody worth following. Okay, so do that. Well, Matt, been a pleasure getting to know you, talking with you, drawing out a ton of quality information. I mean, you're an absolute rock star, and I appreciate you having us.
Thanks, Brett. Same here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right, guys. Until the next one, take care, everybody.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.